Last year, on Boxing Day, I found a really cool ornament in a clearance box. It had a built-in camera to record a unique perspective on your holiday celebrations. I grabbed the last one from the store's dusty shelf and brought it home for less than $10. I forgot about it until my wife, my 2 daughters, and I decorated the house earlier this month. I told my daughters about the camera and said we'd secretly catch Santa in the act. I had an old costume in the attic and intended to deliver some gifts in full view of the camera on Christmas night. My girls were overjoyed and went back and forth trying to find the best place to put the ornament on the tree. They had no idea Daddy repositioned it later so it could actually catch the living room and a good angle. In the nights leading up to Christmas, I turned the camera on to make sure everything was working properly. In the morning, I previewed the footage, just long enough to confirm the thing was working. Satisfied, I inserted the microSD card back into the ornament and slipped in a new battery in anticipation for the big night. Daddy didn't want to disappoint his girls with a failed recording. We enjoyed Christmas Eve as a family, playing board games and eating way more junk food than there was room in our stomachs. Like we do every year, we let our daughters open one gift from Mummy and Daddy before going to bed. The girls still riding their sugar high could be heard giggling in their bedrooms from all the way up the stairs. From time to time, my wife and I could hear one of them shush the other, claiming she'd heard hooves on the roof or bells jingling. Eventually, our kiddos dozed off. My wife kissed me on the cheek and headed to bed while I turned off all the lights. I retrieved the costume and tiptoed to the living room, getting ready for my big feature film debut. On Christmas morning, the girls came running into our bedroom to wake us up. They excitedly insisted we watch the video before opening the presents. I transferred the footage to my laptop, forwarded to where Santa showed up, and pressed play. My girls squealed with delight and jumped in front of the screen, frantically waving at Santa while obscuring the video from my view. It brought me so much joy to see how happy the girls were. I was too lazy to stop the video, so it continued to play in the background while we unwrapped our gifts. I spotted a box I had not seen the night before. It was small and wrapped in a blue foil paper I did not recognise. My name was on it, but my wife seemed as surprised as I was to see it there. Noticing my confusion, my youngest daughter spoke. "That's gotta be from Mr. Elf," she said, her voice cheerful and bright. I was ready to dismiss her elf comment as just another weird thing kids say, but my wife wasn't so quick to ignore it. "Honey, what elf?" she asked. My daughter pointed to the laptop. By then, the video had ended and all that was left on the screen was a preview of the first frame. "The one that came with Santa," she answered. Panic struck me like a bird in a jet propeller. I know my wife didn't dress up as an elf. I scanned the video, clicking forward and back until I saw what my daughter had seen. There was someone in the living room. He walked into the corner after I turned the lights off. He stood there watching me, parading around as Santa. The video went completely quiet after that. It was as though the camera failed to record a single sound. The strange tall man in an elf costume stood perfectly still for an hour, watching the camera from a distance. After a while, he walked over to the plate of cookies and bit the head off a gingerbread man. I glanced at the plate and saw his teeth marks on the decapitated cookie. The man then quietly approached the Christmas tree. I thought the audio wasn't working, but as he reached the tree, I began hearing his slow and steady breaths. He reached towards the ornament, and the video stopped. In a terrified frenzy, I grabbed the blue box he'd left behind. I ripped the bow off it and tossed the frilly thing away. I frantically removed the wrapping paper, opened the box, and looked inside. There on a bed of bubble wrap was the battery I'd put in the camera the night before. My wife took the ornament and opened the back. The battery was missing. I don't know what scares me more, what the camera caught, or what the elf might have done after he turned off the camera. Today was the annual holiday potluck. My office doesn't really do parties, but every occasion gets a potluck. It's business as usual, except everyone brings food. We work while stuffing ourselves silly. Nothing like working for a stomachache, right? It's always a game of food poisoning roulette. Since I was the first one in, I was expected to do the basic setup. Dutifully, I cleared off the sorting table and got the coffee going. I expected to spend the first 30 minutes of my shift in peace, but it wasn't to be. The phone started to ring. It's too early for this, I thought. I answered anyway, putting on my best customer service voice. At this hour, most customers hadn't had their coffee yet, so answering the phone was a crapshoot. Fortunately, it was only Carol.
Thank God you answered. Can you let me in? My arms are full.
She always brought enough baked goods for everyone to have seconds and thirds. It was one of the few things I looked forward to.
I'll be right over. Hold on.
I hung up and hurried over to the employee entrance. I yanked open the door and found Carol standing there with a heaping stack of Tupperware in her arms. The scent of gingerbread hung around her like a warm Christmas perfume, sweet and inviting.
Let me help you with that. You tried to get it all in one trip, huh?
I carefully grabbed a few of the containers, making sure not to tip them over and walking with her inside. Carol smiled appreciatively, relieved she could finally set everything down. I took a peek at the goodies. As expected, gingerbread cookies, gingerbread office workers, each one bigger than my hand and intricately detailed.
What do you think?
She asked, puffing out her chest with pride.
I made one for everyone in the office. After I pass these out, I'm out of here though. I'm not working today, but I wanted to make sure everyone got theirs. Wow.
I admired her handiwork. It only took me a moment to realise that the gingerbread cookies were modelled after our co-workers. I looked eagerly for the one she made of me, but I didn't see one.
These must have taken you forever to make. The details are perfect. No one can top these.
Suddenly, my crock-pot of meatballs seemed a lot less exciting. Oh well, it wasn't a competition. As if I could beat Carol's Christmas cookies. By then, my phone started to ring, so I hurried back to my desk. I watched Carol pass out her cookies with care, placing them on desks atop pretty poinsettia plates.
Are you going to be open on Christmas?
The customer asked the second I picked up. No hello, only a shrill inquiry.
No, but we will be open as usual on the 26th.
I answered.
What do you mean you won't be open on Christmas? What if I need help right away? I'll have to wait?
I gave my scripted answer to the angry customer, distracted and deadpan. By the time the call was done, Carol came over with a smile, bringing the very last cookie over to me.
I'd say it's too pretty to eat, except he was never really a looker, was he?
She said. I looked down at the gingerbread man. It wasn't me, it was our boss, Dale.
This one's mine?
I asked tentatively, definitely confused. Maybe there was a mistake.
Of course, how many opportunities do you get to bite your boss's head off? I wanted to give you the honour.
If Carol sensed my disappointment, she didn't let on. I looked down at the cookie again, a dense gingerbread man in a cheap suit. Even though the suit had been made with a glaze and frosting, I had that impression, cheap, ill-fitting, and grey. A perfect replica of one of his two suits with a garish Christmas tie.
As long as it doesn't taste like Dale.
I laughed. Be honest, as perfectly made as the cookie was, I didn't find it appetizing. Well, I did. It smelled amazing, but there was something off-putting about eating a cookie shaped like someone else, especially Dale. Then again, it would be just as weird to eat one that looked like me. Cookie cannibalism.
You didn't give him one that looks like me, right?
I shuddered. Now that would be creepy. Dale was a real piece of work, but I had to tolerate him if I wanted to keep my job.
Of course not.
Carol assured me.
Could you do me a favour? Wait until everyone else gets in before you eat it. I want everyone to see. I wish I could see the looks on their faces. You'll tell me, won't you? Sure.
I slid the gingerbread away from me. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to eat it or not, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Maybe if I scraped off the decorations first. That seemed equally rude though.
When you eat gingerbread cookies, are you the kind of person to go for the head or the arms and legs first? Or maybe you pull off the decorations one by one?
She asked suddenly. Carol wasn't looking at me when she asked. She was looking towards Dale's office. What a weird question, especially coming from her, when she saw the look on my face. Carol laughed and patted my shoulder.
Sorry, I was just having a funny thought. There's a little sadist in everyone, isn't there? Excuse me?
Grabbing her empty Tupperware, Carol gave me a wink and wished me a Merry Christmas. She left, leaving me alone in the office. I kept eyeing the gingerbread Dale, still feeling weird about it. Weird, but also hungry. The cookies smelled divine, which was odd considering I'd never been a huge fan of gingerbread. About 10 minutes later, the rest of my co-workers trickled in. They complained about how tired they were, morning traffic, and the holidays. Of course, the belly aching became exclamations of delight when they discovered the cookies set neatly on their desks. Everyone started showing one another their cookies and taking pictures, marvelling at the perfect detail. Patty's cookie had her trademark beehive, updo, and pearls. Mark's cookie was bearded with square glasses. Betty's had electric blue eyeshadow and dimples. Though the outfits weren't an exact match, the resemblances were uncanny. Eventually, the clamour died down and everyone sat at their desks. All except Patty, who scurried over to my desk with a wide smile.
I didn't see yours,
She said, showing me hers for the second time. She carried her plate proudly in both hands like she was presenting a piece of art. To be fair, Carol's work really was exquisite. I just didn't like Patty. Patty's eyes moved to the plate I'd set away from me. My cookie wasn't like everyone else's, which suddenly seemed like a problem.
Oh, it looks like Dale. Is it yours?
She scrunched her face at me, somehow managing to keep the smile. I didn't like her insinuation.
Yes, it's mine.
Did she really think I'd scoffed down my cookie and stole another one off my boss's desk? Really?
Why doesn't it look like you then?
Oh yes, the insinuation was still there. A bitter anger spread across my tongue, but I fought to keep my voice level and my face flat. It was weird that I was the only one with a cookie that looked like someone else, but I didn't make them. It wasn't up to me.
Carol thought it would be funny, that's all. Carol, but wasn't she fired yesterday?
Patty's expression scrunched up even more. Her hands moved up to her pearls, fidgeting with a long strand. Sometimes I wondered if she wore pearls just so she could clutch them.
No, wouldn't a memo have gone out if she was?
I turned my attention back to work. I hoped Patty would get the hint and go away, but she just stood there for a long moment, sucking in a deep, dramatic breath. She picked her plate off my desk, staring hard at the gingerbread patty.
Didn't you make these?
She asked slowly.
No, I brought the meatballs. Why would you think I made them?
I answered, not looking up. I pretended to read an email. Patty was being nosy, as usual. I'd never liked that about her. Didn't have anything better to do, I guess. Except for the work she let pile up. But if I said that, she'd complain to Dale. Patty was his favourite for some reason, so I'd probably get written up for not being a team player. Like a lot of offices around the world, this one was toxic.
I'm not sure if this is okay. I'll be right back.
Patty said, unaware of my rude thoughts. I looked up when she said that, unable to help myself. She didn't explain, pivoting towards Dale's office. To tell on me or Carol, I honestly wasn't sure. Either way, it was a headache for me. She reappeared in the doorway with Dale a moment later. They both made a beeline straight for my desk. Their expressions a lot more serious than they cookie called for. Great. I pretended not to notice, busying myself with a stack of fresh paperwork. Before they reached me, there was a loud cracking sound and a scream. Every head in the room whipped in the direction of the sound, to find Robert with tears running down his face. All I could see was his eyes poking up from his workstation, expression twisted and red.
My arm!
He screamed.
Oh my god, it won't move.
A couple of co-workers ran over to see what happened. I reached for my phone instead, ready to call 911 if an ambulance was needed. Patty and Dale changed course, but everyone looked confused. How on earth had Robert hurt his arm while sitting at his desk? Carpal tunnel? Now's your chance, came an errant of thought. My eyes slid towards the gingerbread Dale. It looked perfectly palatable on that pretty poinsettia plate. Hurry before they confiscate it. Now wasn't the time to worry about cookies. But my tongue tingled with anticipation and my teeth itched with the urge. Just one small bite. The thought was strange, almost like it wasn't mine, but very compelling. The gingerbread man was heavier than I expected. I lifted it to my lips and bit off one of the feet. It crunched in stereo, unusually loud as the foot snapped off and began to melt on my tongue. Delicious. A rush of delight washed over me, brought on by a flood of flavour that drowned out Dale's cursing screams. He'd fallen. rocking back and forth on the floor. He must have twisted his ankle in his haste to check on Robert. How unlucky, 2 injuries in one day. A chorus of "Oh my gods" rang through the office, but I set down my phone so I could hold the gingerbread Dale with both hands. Without even thinking, I took another bite, nibbling up the leg before switching to the other foot. The screaming kept getting louder, filling the room. The gingerbread had such a rich and complex flavour: ginger, cinnamon, allspice, cloves, and something else. Was it earthy? Or maybe it was the texture. Soft and velvety, yet dense and crunchy. Wow, so much screaming. All over carpal tunnel and a sprained ankle. Annoyed, I glanced around the room to find that almost everyone was screaming. The ones who weren't screaming were chewing with blissed out looks on their bloody faces, or slumped over their desks. Confused, I touched my own wet mouth and looked down at my red fingers. I wasn't in any pain. Had Carol put glass in the batter or something? Where was the blood coming from? Why was everyone still eating? Because they can't help themselves. I couldn't help myself either. Without realising it, I'd eaten half of the Dale cookie and found myself going in for another bite. Horrified, I dropped the cookie, the gingerbread snapping in half as it hit the floor. Dale curled up on the carpet, was suddenly still and quiet. Patty was right next to him on the floor, but she didn't seem to notice, chewing frantically with glazed eyes, gingerbread crumbs and blood running down her chin. Only when her mouth was empty did she resume screaming again. She rolled and started eating her cookie off the carpet. The spell the cookie cast on me had broken with my boss's spine. He was dead, and with each quieted scream, a co-worker joined him in death. I was the last one standing, the last one screaming. Soon, I was standing in perfect silence. No more screams, no more chewing. Only then was I able to move. I grabbed my keys and ran out of the office. Maybe I should have called the police, but I didn't know what I was going to tell them. That Carol's Christmas cookies had killed everyone, but me. That I chewed my boss to death with a voodoo gingerbread man. I couldn't come up with a logical explanation in my state of pure panic. Even though my voice had broken, my thoughts kept screaming. I ran through the snowy parking lot and found my car. I'm not sure why I ran. No one was chasing me. There was no one who could. Before I could jump into my car and drive away, I noticed the little red gift bag sitting on the hood of my car. Across the front, written in glitter, the words, "Merry Christmas, from Carol." I was terrified but looked inside the bag anyway. As I feared, there was a cookie. My heart thudded in terror, but I felt compelled to examine it. In spite of my dread, I started to salivate, clenching my teeth together. Even after what I had witnessed, I wanted to eat it. The cookie wasn't me, it was Carol. Carol down to the outfit she'd worn that very morning, except for the "sorry" rubbed across her sweater in red. I swallowed the bloody spit in my mouth. Reaching back into the gift bag, there was a Christmas card inside. Still holding the gingerbread Carol, I opened it up. A key was taped inside, along with a simple message. "Merry Christmas. There's a gingerbread office in my apartment. If you smash it, everyone will think the roof collapsed. That should explain all the broken bones. Don't worry, no one will find me. P.S. You were always kind to me, that's why I spared you. I hope you'll do me one more kindness, and make it quick. Love, Carol." I closed the card, tucking it back into its envelope, and sitting in my car. I looked down at the cookie, still in my hand. My tongue tingled, my teeth itched. I didn't want to do it, but I had to. I bit off Carol's gingerbread head. It tasted like gingerbread and death.